As a leader, you'll face any number of problems, and those problems will range from simple problems all the way up to complex problems. And what you will realize is that as a problem increases in complexity, your ability to successfully navigate that complexity will require you to have a higher level of thinking and really a different approach. Well, there's a really helpful matrix that was developed by a gentleman by the name of Ralph Stacy, where he really shows leaders the components and the factors that go into a complex problem. The first factor is the level of alignment that there is around that problem. And so if your team is close to alignment, then that might be a simple problem. If they're far from alignment, that might be a complex problem. The second factor is the level of certainty that you have that the solution you're putting forward will actually solve the problem. Another way of looking at this is the level of predictability. And so again, if you are close to agreement, then that might be a simple problem, especially if you are close to certain that the solution will actually solve the problem. But if you're far from agreement or far from certain, then you begin to experience complicated problems and then complex problems. Now, he also suggests that if there is no alignment or no agreement and there is no certainty, that's when you will find yourself out here on the edge of chaos. Now, we've all been there before. It's called a pandemic, and that's where there's no agreement around what's happening. There's no alignment, and we have no predictability, no certainty that what we're proposing will actually solve the problem. And it feels as though the sky is falling. Now, this is a helpful model because if you're sitting in a leadership meeting wrestling over a problem, you as a leader can ask yourself, is our team close to alignment around this problem? And do we have high levels of certainty that what we're putting forward will actually solve the problem? And if your team is not close to alignment, then you want to be able to say, what do I need to do in order to bring my team to agreement around this problem? And as we are getting closer in agreement, then we can say, how can we begin to put forth and test certain solutions that might have higher levels of predictability? Now, I like to say that if you find yourself out here on the edge of chaos, there's a few things I want you to engage in. Number one, I want you to engage in two-way communication. Two-way communication is not where you are just talking to your team, but it's where you are listening to your team. You're understanding what's their perspective, what's going on in their world, how do they see the situation. You're really and sincerely asking them for their perspective and their opinion on this. That two-way communication is one step that you can take to bring your team into alignment together. The other thing I want you to engage in is data-driven decisions. All of the decisions that you make have to be informed by data. You have to pull your research team together and your finance team together. You need to see the numbers because you recognize we're out here on the edge of chaos and I need my team aligned around the data so that we can make these informed decisions. And the last thing that you can engage in if you find yourself out here on the edge of chaos is creative thinking. Now, it's very difficult for leaders to engage in creative thinking often because they are just too involved in the situation. You're too close to the trees to see the forest. So oftentimes you have to bring in an outside perspective, someone who doesn't have that insider mentality or that insider point of view, and they can actually bring a fresh perspective to the situation you're facing. And so as a leader, if you find yourself dealing with these complex problems and you're out there on the edge of chaos, one way to bring certainty and alignment to your team is to engage in two-way communication, data-driven decisions, and creative thinking. By engaging in these three tactics, it'll move your team out of the edge of chaos and allow you to experience higher levels of alignment so that you can be more certain on how to address the complex problems you're facing.